Let's check in with Tyler Hoover.
Well, Carroll Shelby really got around. Of course, we're seeing tons of beautiful examples of Fords, early Fords that he's selling today. Well, not him, but examples of it. And then he had a little run with Chrysler, and then he came back to Ford with a relationship that has lasted to this day. But this one's an often forgotten car. It's a 1999 Shelby Series 1, and this is the only car Carroll Shelby has designed from the ground up and built. Otherwise, it was all existing vehicles that he tuned up and, made cool. There's only 250 of these made, so it's often forgotten, and they actually used a very strange engine on these. Let's open the hood. Now you got a General Motors engine. This is actually a 4-liter V8 from an Oldsmobile Aurora. Yes, an Oldsmobile. That was about 250 horsepower in the Oldsmobile, but he tuned these up to 320. So this is one of less than 250 examples selling. The first one I have ever seen in person, and it is really nice.
This is a car that Tyler Hoover previewed just a little while ago. It is a 1991 Shelby Series 1 convertible, and as we talked about, this is the first car that Carroll Shelby was responsible for both building and designing. Let's listen up on the block.
Absolutely, what an exciting time. These are the only ground-up cars that we built for the street that had a 17-digit VIN number, and were further, crash tested and everything back in '99. There was about 70 of them that were supercharged, and this is one of those. Push rod suspension. You've got a honeycomb aluminum chassis in it, unbelievably strong. Way ahead of its time. You can see the airflow up over the nose. They would never get hot. My favorite potential customer had a turbo Porsche from back in 1999, a Viper ACR, you name it. I love it because I could take them to the track and whip their butts. So that was pretty fun. But anyway, let's get her started.
Ladies and gentlemen, lot number
Most people know of the Cadillac Northstar V8. Well, the Olds Aurora is its little brother. They have the same bell housing pattern, even have the same 3.3-inch stroke. The difference is the Cadillac Northstar at 4.5 liters has about, a quarter-inch larger bore than the 4-liter Olds Aurora. Otherwise, very similar engines.
They were talking about earlier about how to get a car into production. One of them was crash testing it. So they used 7 cars and had to go to send them off to the government for crash testing, which is very expensive to do, especially on a car where you're only making 250 of them or less.
Well, now the new legislation for low-volume manufacturers would make it easier for somebody like Carroll Shelby to be able to produce a vehicle like this. But back then, you're right, it was very hard. All the hoops he had to jump through were like the same ones anybody would have to do if they were making 10,000 or 1 million cars.
This is actually my first time seeing one of these in person, and I didn't know it used GM drivetrains, but then when I saw the center console, I saw the GM radio and the climate control, I thought, well, what the heck's going on here? So Shelby's been with GM, it's been with Ford, been with Chrysler. I mean, he gets around.
Well, that's because Carroll Shelby was an opportunist in many ways. At any moment in time, he was flush or he was looking for money, as the case may be. And where he had to look, he'd do what he can to keep it going.
A little known fact, before he found a dance partner with Ford in 1962, he visited Chevrolet and was turned down.
So an interesting story. Earlier today, we were talking about the Pantera that was up on the block. The car that preceded the Pantera was the Mangusta. Well, that's because Alejandro De Tomaso was supposed to be building a car jointly with Carroll Shelby. It didn't work, fell through, and as a result, he wanted a car that was going after the Cobra, and it was the Mongoose, the Mangusta. So Carroll Shelby made friends, and he made enemies along the way.